Lesson 65, Advanced Substitution. All right, obviously in advanced substitution, we're going to be using the method of substitution to solve for different variables. Now, these are multivariable, multi-equation problems. All right, so in these problems, we're actually going to be dealing with 4 unknowns, which means we're also going to be dealing with 4 equations. Now, thankfully, the equations are going to be given to you. You don't need to read a word problem and try to figure out what the equations are. All right, but in these problems, use one equation as the base equation. All right, we're going to pick one equation. It really doesn't matter too much which one you use, and I'm going to show you when we get into the examples which ones I would choose based on what I think is easier. But you're going to use one equation that would be called your base equation, and you're going to substitute all other equations into that base equation. All right, so we're going to use one equation as the base equation and substitute all other equations into that equation. All right, so let's look at an example. Our equations are AB equals 6, CD equals 6, C equals 3A, and D equals 2 minus B. All right. In this equation, I'm going to choose CD equals 6 as my base equation. And here's why. I have 2 variables that are equal to an actual numerical value. These 2 variables are actually set equal to something already. Okay? In the second and third equation, you know, C is equal to 3A and D is equal to 2 minus B. All right, so I'm going to use that equation as my base equation. All right, now if I have CD equals 6, I know that C is equal to 3A. So I can substitute 3A in for C. I also know that D equals 6, or excuse me, that D is equal to 2 minus B. So I'm going to substitute 2 minus B in for D. All right, so now instead of CD equals 6, I have 3A times 2 minus B equals 6. Obviously, we're going to have to do some distribution in order to solve. So we're going to distribute 3A times 2 will give me 6A. 3A times B will give me 3AB. Again, they're all equal to 6. All right, so now notice we have an A and an AB. Well, if we look at our equation number 1, we know that AB is equal to 6. So I can substitute 6 in place of AB. So now I have the equation 6A equals, or excuse me, 6A minus 3 times 6 equals 6 because AB is equal to 6. Now I have one equation with one variable and I can solve for that variable. All right, so if we continue on to solve for A, we know that 6A minus 18 equals 6. I can add 18 to both sides and I have 6A equals 24, which means that A equals 4. All right, so I have now solved for one of my variables. Now that I know what that variable is, I can solve it, set it back into any equation and solve. All right? We have C equals 3 times A. Well, if A is 4, then we know that 3 times 4 is 12, so C is going to be equal to 12. All right, I also have my equation over here, AB equals 6. Well, if A is 4, then I have 4 times B equals 6, which means that B equals 3 halves. Or 6 over 4 simplifies to 3 halves, or 1 and 1 half. And if I substitute 3 halves in for B in this equation, to solve for D, I have D equals 2 minus 3 halves, which would give me 1 half. So now I have used advanced substitution to solve for all 4 variables. So what you're doing is you're picking one base equation and you're substituting in everything else into that one base equation. All right, let's look at one more. We have AB equals 693, A equals 3C, CD equals 165, and B plus D equals 12. Again, I'm going to pick one equation that will be my base equation, and everything else I'm going to substitute in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my base equation, AB equals 693. The reason I'm going to use that is because I know what A is equal to. And in this equation over here, I can solve for B. So if I subtract D from both sides, I have B equals 12 minus D. So now I know what B is. So I can substitute 3C in for A, and I can substitute 12 minus D in for B. All right, so if we substitute that, we have 3C times 12 minus D. That's going to equal 693. All right, then just as we did in the last one, we're going to have to distribute. So we have 3C times 12 gives me 36C. 3C times negative D gives me minus 3CD. And it's equal to 693. All right, well, if we look here, we know that CD is equal to 165. So I can substitute 165 in for CD. So I now have 36C minus 3 times 165 equals 693. What I want you to do for tonight is to finish this equation. So I want answers for A, B, C, and D. So go ahead and pause the video and finish solving the equation. Hit play when you're ready to continue. All right, now that you have solved for A, B, C, and D in this equation, I want you to go ahead and try one example completely on your own. All right, this example is AB equals 288. CD equals 108. A equals 3C. And B plus D equals 12. Go ahead and solve that one completely on your own so that you have values for A, B, C, and D, and we will check them in class.